Louisiana executes inmate with nitrogen gas. After 15-year hiatus, a critical analysis. Did Louisiana just open Pandora's box? After a 15-year pause, the state resumed executions, choosing nitrogen gas as its method. But was this a step forward or a descent into uncharted ethical territory? Give a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Louisiana has officially broken its 15-year hiatus on capital punishment. The state's decision to resume executions raises serious questions about justice, ethics, and the evolving landscape of capital punishment in America. Jesse Hoffman Jr. became the first person in Louisiana to be executed in over a decade. His execution marks a significant turning point in the state's approach to the death penalty. The method chosen for Hoffman's execution was nitrogen gas, a relatively new and controversial method. This marks the first time Louisiana has employed this method of execution. Jesse Hoffman Jr. was pronounced dead at 6:50 p.m. at Louisiana State Penitentiary. The execution took place after years of legal battles and debates surrounding the use of nitrogen gas. The process involved administering nitrogen gas for a total of 19 minutes. This duration raises questions about the intended speed and humaneness of the procedure. According to one official, the execution was described as flawless. This characterization is starkly contrasted by witness accounts of the execution. Hoffman declined to make a final statement or request a final meal. His silence speaks volumes about his state of mind in his final moments. Witnesses present at the execution reported observing involuntary shaking or convulsive activity. These observations raise concerns about the potential suffering experienced by Hoffman. Despite the reported movements, witnesses generally agreed that nothing seemed out of the ordinary based on the established protocol. This highlights the potential disconnect between the intended procedure and the reality of its implementation. Gina Swanson, a reporter from WDSU, described the execution as clinical and procedural. This detached description underscores the dehumanizing aspects of capital punishment. Hoffman was convicted of the 1996 murder of Mary Molly Elliott in New Orleans. The brutal nature of the crime contributed to the public's demand for justice. He was only 18 years old at the time of the crime. This fact raises questions about culpability and the potential for rehabilitation. Hoffman spent much of his adult life at the Louisiana State Penitentiary. His decades on death row highlight the lengthy and often agonizing process of capital punishment. Hoffman's attorneys made last-ditch efforts to appeal to the Supreme Court. They argued against the constitutionality of the nitrogen gas execution method. The Supreme Court had previously declined to intervene in Alabama's nitrogen hypoxia execution. This set a precedent that made Hoffman's legal challenge an uphill battle. Attorneys argued that the nitrogen gas procedure violates the Eighth Amendment. They claimed it constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. They also argued that it infringes on Hoffman's freedom to practice religion, Buddhism. The denial of religious freedom in his final moments is a serious ethical concern. The Supreme Court ultimately voted 5-4 in declining to step in. This close vote underscores the deep divisions within the court regarding capital punishment. A 19th Judicial District Court judge also declined to stop the execution. This decision further solidified the state's determination to proceed with the execution. The nitrogen gas execution method works by depriving the body of oxygen. This leads to hypoxia and ultimately death. Louisiana's protocol for nitrogen gas execution is nearly identical to Alabama's. This suggests a lack of independent evaluation and potential reliance on a flawed model. Hoffman was strapped to a gurney with a full-face respirator mask. This image evokes a sense of medicalized violence. Pure nitrogen gas was pumped into the mask. The use of pure nitrogen raises questions about the potential for pain and suffering. The gas was administered for at least 15 minutes, or until heart rate flatlined. The prolonged duration of the procedure is a cause for concern. Hoffman was covered with a gray plush blanket. This seemingly innocuous detail highlights the attempt to create a sense of normalcy in an inherently abnormal situation. His spiritual advisor was present in the chamber. The presence of a spiritual advisor underscores the importance of religious comfort in the face of death. Buddhist chanting was heard before the execution. This act of faith provides a glimpse into Hoffman's spiritual life. The gas began to flow at 6:21 p.m. This precise timing marks the beginning of the end for Jesse Hoffman Jr. Hoffman started twitching, his hands clenched, and he had slight head movement. These physical reactions raised serious questions about the humaneness of the procedure. His last visible breath appeared to be at 6:37 p.m. This moment marks the end of his life and the beginning of a new chapter in the debate over capital punishment. Seth Smith, from the Louisiana Department of Public Safety and Corrections, witnessed the execution. His interpretation of the events is crucial to understanding the state's perspective. Smith perceived the convulsions as an involuntary response to dying. This explanation attempts to minimize the potential for suffering. He believed Hoffman appeared to be unconscious at the time. This assertion is difficult to verify and remains a point of contention. This was only the 5th time nitrogen gas has been used in an execution in the U.S. The limited experience with this method raises concerns about its reliability and humaneness. 4 previous executions were conducted in Alabama. Alabama's experience serves as a precedent, but also as a cautionary tale. Inmates in Alabama appeared to shake and gasp during their executions. These reactions mirror those observed in Hoffman's execution. Alabama officials attributed these reactions to oxygen deprivation. This explanation is not universally accepted and requires further scrutiny. Alabama first used nitrogen gas to execute Kenneth Eugene Smith. This execution was highly controversial and sparked international debate. Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Arkansas authorized execution by nitrogen hypoxia. This regional concentration suggests a shared approach to capital punishment. Louisiana expanded its approved death penalty methods to include nitrogen hypoxia and electrocution. This expansion reflects a desire to maintain capital punishment options. Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders signed legislation allowing executions using nitrogen gas. This further solidifies the trend towards nitrogen hypoxia as an alternative execution method. National execution rates have declined due to legal battles and drug shortages. This decline has forced states to seek alternative methods of execution. Many states have abolished or paused the death penalty. This reflects a growing national debate about the morality and effectiveness of capital punishment. Louisiana's decision was driven by a desire to resume executions after a period of inactivity. This decision was likely influenced by political pressure and public sentiment. A small group of execution opponents held a vigil outside the prison. Their presence highlights the ongoing moral opposition to capital punishment. They passed out prayer cards with photos of Hoffman and planned a Buddhist reading. These acts of remembrance serve as a counter-narrative to the state's official account. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrill expects at least 4 people to be executed this year. This statement signals a renewed commitment to capital punishment in the state. She stated that justice had been delayed for too long. This sentiment reflects a desire to bring closure to victims' families. She said Hoffman faces the ultimate judgment, the judgment before God. This statement invokes religious authority to justify the execution. The execution of Jesse Hoffman Jr. raises profound questions about the future of capital punishment in America. Was this a step towards a more humane method, or a descent into uncharted ethical territory? The debate is far from over. What do you think? Was this execution just, or a violation of human rights? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of legal and ethical issues. And most importantly, contact your elected officials and let them know where you stand on the death penalty. Your voice matters.